I think everybody knows on some level, that there is a world that science can't measure or quantify.
Yeah.
That there is, that there's stuff that we can't explain.
Yeah.
But that it's no less real for our inability to explain it. So let's go through the list.
Yeah. By the way, I was an atheist. I'm trained in journalism and law. And so I'm always looking for corroboration.
Yes.
I'm looking for evidence. I'm looking for facts. And so you're right. I think there's an intuitive sense that most people have that there's something beyond what we can see, touch, or put in a test tube. 8 out of 10 Americans believe that. But how do we know? What is the evidence? And that's what I try to get into in the book. How can we be sure through corroborated evidence that indeed there are such things as miracles, as near-death experiences, as deathbed encounters, and mystical dreams and things like that?
Yeah, atheism is the leap of imagination.
It is. That's true.
It's hard to be an atheist.
It's very true.
Admire them in a way, though. Feel sorry for them. But anyway, okay. Angels.
Yeah.
What's an angel?
Fascinating. Angels are created by God before humankind was created. They are spirit beings, so they're not omniscient like God is. They're not omnipresent like God is. They don't age because there's no physical body. They don't marry because there's no physical body. They're very intelligent, very smart, and they are, according to the Bible, they are to serve not only God but also His people. And what's interesting,
the Christian Bible,
yeah,
with the Hebrew Old Testament,
yeah,
makes reference to these. Is there any culture in the world that doesn't believe in some form of angel?
It's pretty universal. Yeah, it is pretty universal.
Like every culture.
Yeah, just virtually every culture.
Yeah, the Inuit all the way to the Maya.
That's right. That's right.
Canaanites.
And what's interesting about the Christian interpretation of angels is that it says in the book of Hebrews in the Bible that we should anticipate the possibility that we would encounter an angel. In other words, it says sometimes when you're providing hospitality to someone, unbeknownst to you, it's an angel. And so there's an anticipation that perhaps there could be angelic encounters. And so what I try to look at in the book are cases in which we have angelic encounters. People actually encounter an angel. I'll give you an example. There was a missionary named John G. Paton, P-A-T-O-N, from Scotland. And he went to an island in the South Pacific to be a Christian missionary. And he and his wife were living in a cottage there. And he's talking about Jesus. Well, the local tribes people didn't quite like that. And so one day, a mob of them came to burn down their house and kill him. So they see this mob forming, and he and his wife are in their house, and what can they do? They start to pray. Say, God, protect us, help us. They're going to kill us. They're going to burn our house down. What do we do? And they prayed all night long. And by dawn, the mob began to dissipate. A year later, he led the head of that mob to faith in Jesus Christ. And they're having a conversation. And John said to him, by the way, do you remember that day when you all came to burn down our house and kill us? Why didn't you do it? And the man said, well, who were all those men you had there? He said, no men, it was just my wife and I. He said, no. Your house was surrounded by these muscular men in white garments with drawn swords. There's no way we could have hurt you that night. Well, what's the explanation for that? I think it could very well have been an angelic encounter, that God had sent angels to protect him. And there's multiple numbers of cases like that.
Well, give me another.
Well, I had an encounter myself when I was 12 years old. It was the only dream I remember as a child. It was more of a vision than a dream. An angel appeared to me and started extolling heaven, how beautiful and wonderful heaven is. And I looked at him kind of offhandedly and said, well, I'm going to go there someday. And he looked at me and said, how do you know? And I was shocked by that. What do you mean, how do I know? And I started to kind of stumble around to justify my goodness. I said, well, I obey my parents pretty much, and I get good grades in school, and my friends like me, and I'm trying to justify why I would get into heaven. And he looked at me and he said, that doesn't matter. And this chill went through my spine. How can this not matter? And he said, someday you'll understand. And then he disappeared. Well, I kind of wrote it off as being a bad pizza and ultimately became an atheist. But 16 years later, as an atheist, my wife brought me to a church. And I heard the gospel for the first time. that salvation, that the doors of heaven are not flung open based on how nice you are to your parents or how good grades you get in school. It's based on the grace of God. It's not something we earn. It's a free gift of God's grace. And I heard that message for the first time, and my mind flashed back to that dream, and I thought, wait a minute. That's what he was trying to tell me back then.
Had you thought a lot about that dream in the subsequent years?
It would come to me every once in a while. I think about it. I just suppress it. Well, it was a bad pizza, But then I thought there's two forms of corroboration there. Number one, that angel told me something when I was 12 years old that I did not already know, that salvation is by grace. And secondly, he made a prophecy, a prediction that someday I would understand that came true 16 years later. I think that may have been an angelic encounter that I had. I can't prove it, but that corroboration tells me maybe it really was.
Hate to brag, but we're pretty confident this show is the most vehemently pro-dog podcast you're ever going to see. We can take or leave some people, but dogs are non-negotiable. They are the best. They really are our best friends. And so for that reason, we're thrilled to have a new partner called Dutch Pet. It's the fastest growing pet telehealth service. Dutch.com is on a mission to create what you need, what you actually need, affordable, quality veterinary care anytime, no matter where you are. They will get your dog or cat what you need immediately. It's offering an exclusive discount, Dutch is, for our listeners. You get $50 off your vet care per year. Visit Dutch.com/Tucker to learn more. Use the code Tucker for $50 off. That is an unlimited vet visit. $82 a year, $82 a year. We actually use this. Dutch has vets who can handle any pet under any circumstance in a 10-minute call. It's pretty amazing, actually. You never have to leave your house. You don't have to throw the dog in the truck. No wasted time waiting for appointments, no wasted money on clinics or visit fees, unlimited visits and follow-ups for no extra cost, plus free shipping on all products for up to 5 pets. It sounds amazing, like it couldn't be real, but it actually is real. Visit Dutch.com/Tucker to learn more. Use the code Tucker for $50 off your veterinary care per year. Your dogs, your cats, and your wallet will thank you.
So we see cases like this around the world, and there's more than 200 references of angels in the Bible. There's not
200.
Yeah. So lots of evidence that indeed this is part of God's creation.
Interesting. I've been to church. I don't know that I'm probably the wrong kind of church, but I don't know that I've ever heard anyone refer to an angel in church.
It's so funny you say that, because I was giving a talk the other day and I said, I've been a Christian now since November the 8th of 1981. I have never heard a sermon on the topic of angels. Ever.
Why?
I don't know. And I go, and so in this book, I delve into it and I learn some new things. For instance, do we have a guardian angel? Well, there's actually 2 passages in the Bible that suggest maybe we do have a guardian angel. In one passage, Jesus is talking to a group and there's some children there, and he said, do not despise these little ones, because their angels see the face of God every day in heaven. Well, who are their angels? And then secondly, Peter, when he escapes from prison, goes to a home where some Christians had gathered, and he knocks on the door. And the servant says, who's there? And he says, Peter. And she recognizes his voice, and she calls out to the other people and says, hey, Peter's here. Well, I said, can't be here. He's in prison. Peter can't be here. It must be his angel. So based on those 2 passages, there are Christians who believe that we have an angel assigned to us. In fact, I believe in the Orthodox Christian tradition, they believe an angel is assigned to you at the time you're baptized. I don't know. There are Christians who deny that, but it could be. But the other thing I learned in my investigation of angels, I thought, you know what? I don't think it's appropriate to pray to angels. I don't believe we're taught to do that. I think there's a slippery slope if you pray to angels that it might slip into worship of angels, which would be blasphemous. But there's nothing wrong with praying to God about angels. Martin Luther in the Small Catechism has a prayer, an evening prayer that says, Lord, send your holy angels to protect me from the evil one. And so I never used to do this, but I now make part of my prayer that God would send angels to protect me and my family, my ministry, my grandchildren. And so I think that's totally appropriate to do.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.